this portion of our presentation, I'll be discussing luxury tax and how that affects NBA owners, NBA teams. In 2011, the new CBA agreement came out, and that really kind of changed how owners treat free agency and how owners are affected by luxury tax. So before the 2011 CBA agreement, it was just a 1-to-1 tax ratio. So let's say a team went over the salary cap by $10 million, then the owner would just have to pay $10 million worth in luxury tax. So it wasn't that detrimental towards the team. Whereas now, after this new CBA agreement, there's a certain tax bracket that each owner will fall into. Each team will fall into depending on how much they went over the salary cap. And so, like, let's say, for example, a team wants to sign a player to a 1-year, $15 million contract because they think that this player can really help them win a championship, put them over the hump, and let's say they want to sign him. So before the CBA agreement, it would have just been a $15 million part of their luxury tax. Whereas now, if you want to sign someone to a 1-year, $15 million deal and you're $15 million over the luxury tax, it's going to cost the owner $28.5 million, right around there. So it's a pretty steep, luxury tax fine for the owner, and it's something that a lot of owners have had to think about. Most specifically, most recently with the Rockets, they had to let Trevor Ariza go. For those of you who follow the NBA pretty closely, and because they have new ownership this year, and they didn't want to pay both Chris Paul and Clint Capella and James Harden, and then have to add on to be able to pay Trevor Ariza would have been roughly right around $30 million in luxury tax, which was something that the GM and ownership didn't think was a good idea, so they had to let him go. And the following slide, I'll have the breakdown for the table. But basically, it's like a higher tax rate for each dollar you spend over the limit. So for up to $5 million, it's about $1.50 for each dollar you spend, followed by $1.75 up to $10 million, and so on and so on. So, and I have the table for the next slide that we can look at there. The last piece I think is really important that we touch on is how it affects repeat tax laws or luxury tax. So if you're a team and you're a contender and you've been over the luxury tax for 3 out of the last 4 years, you're put under a separate tax bracket, which is even steeper fines and even steeper tax laws. And so, for example, let's look at the Cavs when they had LeBron. So obviously, when you have LeBron, you're going to try to win a championship. You're going to be a bit more competitive, and as a result, you're going to be over the salary cap most likely. So, because they were over the salary cap, trying to acquire veterans and older talent, which is going to be a bit more expensive. They were over the salary cap for 3 out of 4 years, put them under a different tax bracket, and as a result, Dan Gilbert had to pay $50 million in luxury tax just last year to eventually get swept by the Warriors. So it's very interesting to see how this luxury tax affects how owners treat free agency or how owners treat signing and acquiring talent, and just the relationship between the GM and the players. So luxury tax is a very unique thing towards the NBA and something that is very interesting and very important in the NBA. Go Hawks.